Hey everyone, welcome back to Her Final Word. I'm Christy. They say you should never go into business with your best friend, and today's story is the ultimate proof of why. Our hero today is a brilliant 59-year-old culinary founder named Rosalind. After spending 20 years building a world-renowned boutique restaurant brand, her younger business partner, who also happened to be her closest protégé, conspired with an aggressive private equity group to forge documents, paint Rosalind as an incapable, aging liability, and steal her brand, right? Tea, before their biggest grand opening. But Rosalind's counterstrike during the live televised launch event? Absolute icy perfection. Before we jump in, tell me in the comments below, drop your city, and let me know if you've ever experienced a devastating betrayal by a close friend or a business partner you trusted completely. Where are the most ruthless betrayals happening? Make sure to watch until the very end. Right after Rosalind's story, I'll share 3 brutal, highly practical psychological rules on how to safeguard your life's work and how to make a narcissistic backstabber destroy their own reputation. Let's get into it. I'm 59 years old. For 2 decades, I was the sole heart, soul, and head chef behind Aurelia, a premier farm-to-table dining brand that grew from a tiny coastal bistro into a multi-million-dollar restaurant group. Cooking wasn't just my job, it was my craft, my heritage, and my legacy. 10 years ago, I took in an ambitious 22-year-old girl named Chloe. I saw potential in her sharp mind, mentored her in culinary arts, and eventually promoted her to Chief Operating Officer. I treated Chloe like the daughter I never had. 3 years ago, when we decided to expand globally, I even gifted her a minority 15% stake in the operating company as a reward for her loyalty. That was my biggest mistake. Greed doesn't care about mentorship, and it certainly doesn't care about loyalty. When a massive private equity firm offered to buy our brand for tens of millions, I turned them down. They wanted to compromise on quality, use cheap factory ingredients, and turn Aurelia into a soulless, fast casual chain. Chloe, however, smelled money. To her, my commitment to excellence was just an obstacle standing between her and a massive payout. She wanted the deal, and she decided that the easiest way to get it was to completely remove me from my own company. A backstabber in business never attacks you up front. They erode your position from the inside. Chloe began making quiet alliances with our investors and board members, subtly framing me as an outdated, inflexible old woman who was losing her touch. In board meetings, whenever I vetoed low-quality suppliers, Chloe would give a heavy, sympathetic sigh, look at the board members and say, "We appreciate Rosalind's traditional passion, but the modern market demands scale. Rosalind is getting tired, and her insistence on the old ways is holding our growth hostage." Then, the campaign became personal. Chloe started telling staff and investors that I was suffering from severe burnout and early physical decline, implying that my hands were too unsteady to lead the kitchen. She began quietly routing high-level corporate communications away from my email. 2 months before the grand opening of our flagship luxury resort location in Miami, I walked into our executive office to find locksmiths changing the doors. Chloe was sitting at my desk, flanked by 2 corporate lawyers from the equity firm. She didn't even look ashamed. She slid a paper across the desk, a forced buyout proposal offering me a fraction of my share value. "What is this, Chloe?" I asked, my voice deadly quiet. "It's your retirement, Rosalind," she said, flashing a cold, transactional smile. "The board voted. We've restructured the corporate hierarchy. You're being transitioned out. We've already signed the agreement with the equity group to license the Aurelia name and recipes globally." "You can't license my recipes or my name," I replied. "I own the original patents and trademarks." Chloe chuckled, leaning back in her chair. "Check the paperwork, Rosalind. 3 years ago, when you signed the expansion restructuring documents, you signed over the intellectual property rights to the holding parent company. You're yesterday's news. Take the money and walk away quietly before we ruin what's left of your reputation. I left the building without making a scene. Chloe expected me to hire lawyers, get bogged down in years of expensive corporate litigation, and eventually settle for peanuts while she celebrated her new CEO title. What Chloe failed to realize was that 30 years in the hospitality industry teaches you two things: how to create exquisite experiences and how to read contract fine print better than any corporate shark. When I signed those restructuring documents 3 years ago, I knew Chloe had an ambitious streak. So, I had my personal trust lawyer insert a tiny, crucial clause in the intellectual property annex: the trademark and core proprietary sauce formulations remain under the sole ownership of the founder's revocable private trust, UNLSS. The founder personally signs a transfer deed upon a change of co-control. I had never signed that transfer deed. The document Chloe thought gave her ownership was a forgery created by her equity partners to fast-track the deal. Furthermore, to save money on the Miami grand opening, Chloe had secretly canceled my verified organic food suppliers and ordered tons of cheap, unpasteurized batch ingredients from an uncertified international vendor. Ingredients that failed basic safety standards and contained banned preservatives. Chloe was preparing to host a televised, star-studded launch event with food critics, celebrity investors, and news crews, serving illegally trademarked dishes made with contaminated, cheap food. She was so blinded by her grand coronation as the new face of the brand that she didn't even check the kitchen logs. Instead of suing her immediately and giving her time to fix her mistakes behind closed doors, I played the part of the broken, defeated mentor. I let her think I was sitting at home, weeping over my lost empire. In secret, I provided the State Department of Health, the Federal Trade Commission, and the State Attorney's Office with the full, unedited trust deeds, the proof of forged signatures, and the shipping manifests of the illegal ingredient batches Chloe had ordered. "We can raid their warehouse right now, Rosalind," the state prosecutor told me. "No," I replied smoothly. "If you raid a warehouse, it's a quiet corporate news story buried on page 10. Let her host her live, televised grand opening. Let her stand in front of the food critics, the cameras, and her celebrity investors. Let her serve the food she stole." I wanted the collapse of her stolen empire to be broadcast in high definition to every investor who had doubted me. The night of the Miami grand opening, the oceanfront restaurant was radiant with crystal lights, floral arrangements, and red carpets. The city's elite, top culinary journalists and camera crews filled the dining room. Chloe stood on the center stage in a stunning gold dress, holding a glass of champagne, bathed in spotlights. "Tonight, we celebrate the evolution of Aurelia," Chloe announced into the microphone, her voice booming over the live broadcast. My former mentor, Rosalind, built a wonderful foundation, but as she stepped into retirement due to her health, I took the mantle to bring this brand to the global stage. The audience applauded loudly. Waiters began rolling out the signature tasting dishes to the VIP tables. Right as the top food critic in the country lifted his fork, the heavy double-glass doors of the venue slammed open. I walked into the dining room. I wore a tailored midnight blue suit, my hair styled perfectly, my emerald ring catching the light. Beside me walked 4 health department inspectors in official uniform, accompanied by state investigators and local police officers. The applause died instantly. The room went dead silent. Chloe's glass trembled in her hand. She forced a strained smile, trying to recover over the microphone. "Rosalind, what a surprise. As I said, my former mentor is here to join our celebration." "Save the performance, Chloe," I said, stepping up to the stage stairs. My calm, authoritative voice echoed through the venue's audio system. You just told this room that I retired and that you own this brand. I pulled a certified legal document from my jacket and held it under the broadcast cameras. This is the master trust deed registered with the state. The Aurelia trademark and all proprietary recipes belong exclusively to my private trust. You forged the corporate transfer documents, Chloe. You stole my name, and you are operating an illegal, fraudulent business. The journalists frantically pointed their cameras at us. Flashbulbs went off like lightning. And it gets worse, the chief health inspector announced, stepping up to the microphone. An emergency inspection has revealed that the management of this venue has used illegal, uncertified ingredient batches containing dangerous preservatives to cut costs. This venue is shut down effective immediately. Panic erupted in the ballroom. VIP guests dropped their forks in horror, spitting out their food. Food critics pulled out their phones to write scathing reviews, and investors rushed toward Chloe demanding answers. Chloe went completely hysterical. She dropped her champagne glass. It shattered on the stage, and she lunged toward me, her face twisted in pure desperation. "You ruined me! You crazy old bitch, you ruined everything!" Two police officers instantly stepped in, grabbing her arms and holding her back as they informed her of her rights. She was being charged with grand fraud, corporate forgery, and reckless endangerment. As they snapped handcuffs around her wrists, her designer dress rumpled. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "Rosalind, please. I was your protégé. You created me." "I created a chef, Chloe," I said softly, looking her dead in the eye. "You turned yourself into a thief. And a thief never gets to sit at my table." The private equity investors were huddled in the corner, frantically calling their lawyers as news outlets broadcast the live arrest across the nation. By the next morning, the equity firm pulled out, the restaurant group collapsed, and Chloe was facing years in prison, along with millions of dollars in personal liability lawsuits. I reclaimed full control of my brand, reopened my authentic restaurants with my loyal staff, and proved a fundamental truth to the entire industry. You can steal a recipe, you can forge a signature, but you can never fake the mastery behind the craft. What an absolute masterclass in taking back what's yours. Chloe thought she could leverage ageism and corporate tricks to strip Rosalind of her life's work, but she forgot that an authentic founder always holds the real master keys. Rosalind didn't argue in an office. She let Chloe expose her own greed on live television in front of the entire industry. If you ever face betrayal in business or a toxic colleague trying to steal your legacy, here are 3 essential rules from her final word. 1. Separate intellectual property from operations. Never keep your core assets, trademarks, or patents inside the main operational company where opportunistic partners can touch them. Hold them in a separate, private entity or trust that requires your explicit personal signature to transfer. 2. Let the thief overreach. When someone steals your idea or work, don't stop them while the stakes are small. Let them launch it on the biggest stage possible. The higher their public profile when you deliver the proof, the more catastrophic their failure will be. 3. Quality is your ultimate leverage. Shortcut takers like Chloe always cut corners on substance and quality. Focus on maintaining absolute mastery over your craft, because when the illusion falls apart, real quality is the only thing that stands the test of time. Now, I want to hear from you. Rosalind completely destroyed Chloe's career, sending her to prison and exposing her in front of live television cameras and the top food critics in the world. Was this the ultimate, satisfying justice for a backstabbing protégé, or should Rosalind have handled it privately out of respect for their 10-year mentorship? Whose side are you on? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to Her Final Word. Remember, the final word should always belong to you. See you next time.